All right. Welcome to this session. I believe is the final one for the day, and that you are not too tired to go through this. But the topic is very interesting. In fact, we are very lucky. We were talking about it some time back outside. Mental health. It is very, very relevant. It is the order of the day because stress is growing leaps and bounds. AI has come in. That's indeed a very nice thing, but it adds on to the issues of mental health. I have a very illustrious panel here. Three of us are from Delhi, and a gentleman has joined us all the way from Kerala. I'm sure we are going to have a very wonderful discussion on the topic of mental health. Like I said, to begin with, we will all, I think, once introduce ourselves once again and then set the ball rolling, because I think that is one of the difficult things to do. What mental health makes them think, first thought. Just we would quickly go through each one to introduce, I would request. Well, I'm Dr. Vijay Datta. I head modern Barakhamba, and I'm here to moderate. The word fortitude comes to my mind when I think of mental health. Why the word fortitude comes to my mind is because it is mental and emotional strength that enables courage in the face of adversity. There's supposed to be some adversity that creates mental health, but it is also something which is growing in the society without any reason at times. There'll be time enough to discuss all this, so I would call upon, first of all, Ameeta Mohan, ma'am, to just introduce herself and say her first thought, a line or two about mental health, then I'll come back with my questions to you. On my right is Dr. Ameeta Mohan. May I please request you to please, once again, briefly introduce, though I can do that, Principal Amity International School, Pushp, Vihar. She is a State Teachers Award winner. So, ma'am, over to you.
Thank you so much. Very, very good afternoon to all present here. And as sir has already introduced me, I don't need to introduce myself again. But mental health to me means peace, inner peace. As sir said, fortitude, because mental health is very, very closely attached to peace. Because once you're peaceful within yourself in the adverse circumstances, I know it is easier said than done, but practice on regular basis helps us to achieve onto that. And it is not an overnight business, okay, tick, I thought of peace is the what that was told to me, so I should be peaceful. No. Peace will come within when you're actually able to analyze your own emotions, the psychic emotions and your emotional emotions. And that's how it works onto it.
Right. So to the right of her is Dr. Manisha Sharma, Principal, Venkateshwar International School, Dwarka. She believes in teaching innovation, professional development, and mentoring. So, ma'am, what would you give as your punchline or the first introductory statement about the mental health issue?
Good afternoon, everyone here. And I can see many children here. And we are talking about a very relevant topic when children are writing their board examination about mental health. About mental health, when we mention it, the word comes in my mind is resilience, managing emotions. And at any point of time, whether younger or old or any caste, any creed, any age group, it is very important, as Dr. Datta rightly said, in this age of artificial intelligence, where the mind is working, the billions of neurons are there, to keep them, as Ameeta ma'am said, rightly, peacefully, but at the same time, the resilience and managing emotions is very, very important. That is the need of hour. At any point of time, we need to learn how to cope. Coping strategies are very, very important. Stress can happen anytime to anyone, but then how to get out of that resilience is very important. Life is not an instant coffee. We need to learn, we need to educate our learners.
Very well said, ma'am. So we'll With that, pass it over to Dr. Anish K. Joy, who's come all the way from Kerala. Let's give him another round of applause for coming all the way from Kerala to be with us. We appreciate your presence, Director Poornodaya.
It's a Sanskrit term,
Vidyanikethan,
Poornodaya,
yes.
Vidyanikethan.
Poornodaya, Vidyanikethan.
Purna means fullness, Udaya means rising. Vidyanikethan is a different name for school, like the place where the knowledge is showered.
Wonderful. So what would you like to say as your opening statement on the topic of mental health?
1 minute or 2 minutes is not enough, but I would
No, you'll
prefer
get
to say
enough
like,
chance to come back.
yeah, definitely. It's a holistic well-being, I would say, one phrase. And otherwise, if you wanted to develop it, I would put it like inclusive and sustainable environment.
That's right.
That includes everything: school, investors, teachers, management, parents, and children.
Correct. I think that's very well put. So over to Dr. Kevin Brady, Principal GD Goenka Public School, Vasant, Vihar, New Delhi. Would you like to say something to just kickstart our conversation?
Absolutely. So I think in the last 10 years, one of the pieces that I know has been kind of rising to the surface in students, in conversations I've had with students, parents, and teachers, is been the issue of perseverance and kind of piggybacking on your fortitude remarks, finding ways for students to understand that setbacks, challenges, alternate paths are not failures, but they're often gateways to levels of success that they had never imagined before. So understanding one's path is not a direct line, but often a winding one, and accepting that and celebrating that, I think helps us all feel a little bit more healthy from a mental health standpoint.
Absolutely. So I think we have set the ball rolling. Now coming back to Dr. Manisha Sharma, who used a very appropriate word, resilience. And to you, I would ask, to what extent can humane qualities like sportsmanship, empathy, and emotional intelligence uplift society's mental health, overall mental well-being, if I may say?
Right. Thanks, Dr. Datta. And you are the, I think, front runner for really embedding and integrating sports education here at NPSC schools. Many things were organized. For emotional well-being, it is very important when I'm talking about empathy, understanding others, and managing my emotions, my relations with others. These are very key areas. Now, as a practitioner, I can see that how these areas are given, whether can be a three-pronged approach, like parents, students, the learners, and the teachers. How are we really educating them about to manage these things? And how together we are coming up to help each other, that's very, very important. So I'll just sum up very briefly that what are we doing in our school. We have a Castle and Aspire program, and in that we take age-appropriate contents for each age group of children, whether foundational years or preparatory years or secondary years students, to really manage them well. Because every day there is a conflict, whether with parents, with anything, so it is very important for them to empower them. We also have various societies, and I'm sure that each school has various platforms where we allow children to vent out their feelings. Nobody is left behind. Another thing is, which is very, very important to let out their emotions, the cathartic effect and everything, is a reflection day. So every fourth Saturday is observed as reflection day, where children in every class group, right from pre-nursery, preschool to class 12, that reflection day, children do discuss everything with their class teacher, with their educators, and that day is observed where they can freely do things and discuss things. So these are the various things which we organize it. And as far as pedagogies are concerned, we take it very, very important thing that when we plan out the lesson, that affective domain should not be left out. What teacher is doing in the affective domain, so that we can cater to the resilience, the emotional intelligence amongst children, including them various collaborative work, cooperative learning, various activities, embedded in their everyday teaching learning process. That is very, very important. So in a whole nutshell, when you allow children to expose, to interact with each other, even those who are the silent ones, they are being observed, they have been taken care, and if you have a strong education system, you can really, really help children, young children, adolescent children in certain extent. Along with that, how to empower educators also. It is very, very important because your counselors and your teachers cannot do all alone unless until they are educated well in that field. So it is very important to make them understand what is the importance of emotional intelligence, how it is important than your intellectual intelligence, than the emotional intelligence, because if emotionally a person is sound, they can certainly surge ahead in every time, in every day, in every field. That's very, very important to teachers and along with the parents. That's very, very important. I'm sure that parents will not like to come for workshop. So that we should be ready, we should coax them, prod them, and we have Atmanthan series which we organize very rigorously. So that we do it, and online webinar, various webinars, whether it's vaping, whether it's any other thing, what is there, the children have the problem of low self-esteem and so many other things, why some of them are not able to really adjust with other children, why they have the conflict, what are the strategies they have. These things are told them in a very, very practical manner. So if we see in a curriculum, everybody is empowered, there is a scope for everything, there is a sizable focus and concentration given on these very, very meaningful things.
Yeah. Very well said, ma'am. Well, low self-esteem is another reason why this mental stress comes in. For that, self-awareness is very important. You have dealt both the aspects of sportsmanship and emotional intelligence really well. As the two are related, therefore I thought I'll ask you in one breath, though they can be dealt separately. But for sportsmanship, you need to have a high EQ.
Yeah.
I give the example of Courtney Walsh, who in the World Cup semi-final, instead of running out the non-striker as he was taking the take off a little sooner, instead of taking off the bails, he just warns him that next time you do this, I'm gonna bowl you out. So I think sportsmanship needs emotional intelligence, and it kind of activates amongst those who are viewing, say all the spectators who saw that generous effort of Courtney Walsh, their empathy, their EQ level was activated, elevated, if I may say. So I think it is indeed very relevant and very well said, I would say, Dr. Manisha Sharma, that it is not just the students but the educators also need to be upgraded on emotional quotient, because only then they'll be able to deal the situation better. Amongst the students, I think the screen time is definitely making a harmful impact on increasing the stress levels, but we'll come back to that a little later.
That's a very relevant topic.
Yes, that's a topic in itself, in fact. So I'll now shift my attention to Dr. Ameeta Mohan and ask her that early intervention, they say, is the key. But how can we effectively identify students who are experiencing mental health challenges?
Thank you so much for that question, and it's so relevant and important, because the early intervention can only be diagnosed or can be only seen the constant involvement of the teacher with the student, with the child. And I think for that, the numbers is one thing which we strongly believe in controlling it. 20 students to 1.5 teacher. And individually, if you would notice a child every day at the early intervention, you would be able to see EQ, as ma'am has just spoken about it, the emotional quotient. The social quotient, SQ, is so important. That's how you start to identify, you start to build up what are the fears in the child's mind. And that, I mean, we have experimented it for a child from KG onwards till class 10th, till class 2, the child, how reserved and how the mental health was being disturbed because of a lot of issues at home. But how, with the intervention of the teachers, with the counselors, and engaging the child in different productive activities made a lot of difference on the child's mental health. And I think lecture is something which never works. You can't go up to a child, oh, your mental health is not good, let's work on it. It will never work. You have to build up, you have to find out, you have to build a connect. Until and unless the connect is built up, you can't, first of all, go to the root cause of the problem. And it's early intervention of the child when the child is not even able to express what he or she might be feeling. It is only through different activities one would realize it, what is going on in a child's mind. I think a lot of TEDx talks have been going on a peekaboo. How peekaboo, a small game for a child, how the child gets involved. Time is a big, big major factor which has to be given to the child by the parents, by the school, by the teachers, and by the society. Even if a child is aloof or alone, you can't just leave the child isolated. And for that, as ma'am again said, empathy is very important. To build up, to build up a buddy system. To build up to the child that yes, so-and-so is lonely, alone, or is going through something, we need to help him or her out about it. And I think that's very important for the early intervention, to build up on the social quotient of the child and slowly and gradually start building up onto the EQ and then to the IQ.
Absolutely, I fully agree with you. And SQ is, of course, as important as EQ. We used to talk about the IQ earlier, that to be successful, you need to be having high IQ, but now are the times when EQ and SQ, they matter in later in life. You might get a good job, but later in life, how successful you are depends on SQ. So bringing in the factor of SQ, as we did kind of mean it, but then spell it out, is indeed very nice, Dr. Ameeta. And when we talk about the issues at home, when you talked about the issues at home, well, a little anecdote came to my mind, which I would like to share with you all. What happens is, which of course you must have heard, a lot of you must have heard earlier, the story of Teddy. His grades were constantly falling, and year after year in the obsessive assessment, it was found that he was doing miserably, and the teacher was getting upset with him more and more, until on the teacher's day comes the time when everyone brings in presents, and he brings a wrapped perfume bottle with hardly any perfume in it and presents to her. Though she was all the time irritated by this child, but then she said, now it's a teacher's day, to please him. She just sprays some scent on herself, and Teddy says, and she then goes to talk to him a bit about and learns that he lost his mother, and that is why all those grades were falling down. So knowing about what's happening at home is very important. And suddenly her emotions changed. Mrs. Thompson's emotions changed towards Teddy, and she became more empathetic. And then Teddy gave that comment that today, ma'am, you have smelt like my mother.
That's very nice.
Yes. So it's so very important to know what's happening at home. Only then the mental health can be looked into, and we as educators should be very much aware of this. Moving on to Dr. Kevin Brady, who sits on my left, alongside on my left. He is, like I've said, Principal GD Goenka. The question to you is, what activities can help reduce anxiety and stress? Like I would say, music, nature, reading, something like that, if you'd like to elaborate on.
Certainly, thank you. And while all of those can reduce stress, and while plunging oneself into a good song or a cathartic song, or engaging in an outdoor activity, we have to be careful too that it doesn't become another source of stress and become yet another layer of issues that are pushing a student towards desperation. So not everything, it's a radical proposition, not everything has to be a competition. So being outside, enjoying the outdoors, having a walk, not necessarily getting yourself into another competitive sport, that's really the centeredness, that's that cathartic place, that's that healing place, that's that place where you find peace in both your body and soul that will get you from the reality you're experiencing, which is overwhelming, to the place where you feel more at ease, you feel more able to face the challenges that come before you. One of the things that I've heard more and more is parents will come and talk to me and they'll say, I'm not sure why my child is so stressed out. He's doing all of his courses and we give him time for his competitive football and his cricket, and the cricket just becomes another source of stress, or the football becomes another source of stress, or the violin lessons become another source of stress. There has to be one place within a student's life where creative expression or outdoor activity or exercise is an end in itself, and not yet another source for stress. And if that exists, it can be tremendously helpful and a real sort of balancing element for students in terms of their overall mental health.
Yeah, I always say, what you cherish, you do well, and what you do well, you cherish. So one should enjoy what one is doing. One should choose very carefully what one wants to do in life. Job you choose, something that you like, then it's never like working, it's like everyday good fun. So stress comes in when you go for a wrong choice. Talking of cricket and talking of even cricket bringing in stress, something, we had at Barakhamba Mr. Kapil Dev visiting, and somebody asked him this question. He said, sir, I have a lot of stress that my performance would be good in, while I'm playing, I'm bowling, and while betting. I have a lot of stress when I'm playing. What should I do? Mr. Kapil Dev went on to say, if you have stress from cricket, you stop playing it. It's so very simple. You have to enjoy what you're doing, or say the other way around, that what you're doing, you must enjoy.
Sometimes most of the time we forget to enjoy each and
Yes,
every moment.
every
That's very
moment
important.
has to be enjoyed. You
And
have
it's
to
reading.
cherish.
Yeah.
You have to cherish what you're doing. Otherwise, it's not worth it. So now, with that thought, I will move on to Dr. Anish K. Joy. He's been very patiently listening to us all. And my question to you is, how do we make mental health initiatives sustainable and seamlessly integrate them into a school's culture and operations?
Very challenging, at the same time relevant question, as Madam also said. I would like to pose two questions, not for just answers, but just for you to think. Imagine if you are a teacher for imagine primary school, primary level students. How do you teach thirst in your students, or thirsty, the concept? Anyone?
You're talking about the thirsty crow?
I'm not talking about the thirsty crow, I'm just talking about the concept thirst. So there are a lot of teachers showing, bringing up the thirsty crow examples, TVs. I don't think they can teach. How do you practice it?
You don't allow them to have water. And then they go.
So I put it like this, ma'am. Maybe ask the student to walk around or run around the school. Definitely they will come back. Ask water. That is thirsty or thirst. Like this has not been done. We are still inside the classrooms, four walls, asking them a lot of things, always asking questions. At the same time, parallelly, when I was young, maybe most of the young generation, when we speak louder or if we are a little bit aggressive in the class, the teacher used to respond, don't shout in the class, right? You might have also heard that. But it gives an indirect answer, you can shout outside the class. So this is the wrong approach of teaching, I would say. And because of this, as per the current studies, one among the 30 students, they have learning difficulties now, as per the current research. Not disability, rather difficulty. And post-COVID, we have a new medical terminology called virtual autism. We have heard about autism, but what is virtual autism? The child is only focused on digital media. What is happening in and around is none of his or her business. Yeah, very much challenging. So my response is coming, we started with STEM-based education it got moved to steam, and now we are standing stream.
Reading is very important.
Reading. And unfortunately, madam, some so-called, they have moved R to religion instead of reading. Strange. So this is how it's been exploited, the education. And I will put related with the mental health, one small example, and I conclude my point. Again, imagine we are trying to teach primary levels. I always try to connect with primary because it is very difficult to get the attention of the primary kids rather than the high level, students. Imagine we are trying to teach them how to make a fruits salad inside the class. At least you need 2 fruits. We are talking about those fruits, the health benefits of the fruits. We are talking about science, EVS. From where the fruits are grown, the geography, the climate, we are talking about social science. When we are cutting it into pieces, we are talking about sizes, numbers, weight, mathematics. The language which we talk, anything, could be Hindi, English, or regional language, or a foreign language. A language skill is developed. At the end of the day, cooking is a life skill. It's not a female job, right? You agree? So, this half an hour, if we can integrate this way of teaching approach, no child would ever get bored. They will never talk about stress in the classroom. Absolutely. This is a way of teaching, I would say, to convert this mental stress. And if you allow 1 minute, I have one more point which is called make the teachers more professional. And AI is the best example. As one of the colleagues before spoke that, let them make lesson plans using AI. But that gives each and every step how to execute it. Use that, execute it. You avoid the mental health.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
So it all depends on how you use the AI. It's neither good or bad. It is how you look at the thing. You can look at the rose bushes and say, they have thorns. And you can look at the thorny bushes and say, wow, they have roses. So it's like that for the AI that you briefly talked about. How we use it can be making it good or bad. It's very, very simple. But what touched my, fancy is the experiential learning that you talked about, which is very, very important, and we believe in it wholeheartedly. There's another thing which at our school, my students right here, where we believe in is interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary aspect of subjects in teaching and learning, which leads to fun learning in a way. Fun learning, I think, is very, very important, and we must include it as much as possible. Right. Now moving on to the second round, if I may say, Dr. Manisha Sharma, I come back to you. What steps can be taken to reduce the stigma surrounding mental health in schools? You know, he briefly talked about COVID. COVID is gone, but still, I think to an extent it left behind it the mental health issues big time, because children couldn't go out to play out in the fields, and the stigma that is attached to it, at times they don't like to talk about it, what difficulty they are facing in coming out of it. So what would you like to talk about, what steps can be taken to reduce the stigma surrounding the mental health issues in schools?
So the school climate is very, very important. Somebody rightly said, the mental health needs is sunlight, more unashamed conversation. So it's very important, very pertinent, and very meaningful that every institution should allow at the hand of the educators, all the stakeholders, the parents, even the support staff. How are they identifying? How are they ready to help? If you enter a school, you can get to know about that what is the quotient of mental health in this school. Because the simple smile on teacher's face, you all agree, all learners are sitting here, can really, she is holding a magic wand. If she shouts, what kind of atmosphere can be there, and she connects with that, what kind of a mental health she's spreading it. And of course, second thing is intervention, identifying what Amita ma'am also said. So there are various strategies where we can identify if the children is isolated. And here comes the role of peer educators, peer mentoring, anti-bullying squad. These things are very, very important in the school because children connect with children. They can really help, and we can seek help of these student volunteers. In a way, we can make certain committees, certain student council can be the part of that, and we can involve them for their well-being. So this is very, very important. As I said earlier also, our lessons, our teaching pedagogies should allow students to explore. And really, we need to help them. We should have the open conversations. And when we talk about inter-house or inter-school competitions, such topics should be there, podcasts should be there, where children are invited and expressing their thoughts. They should be at the helm to sort out and bring out the solution. That's what I can share.
Well, very well said, ma'am. I must compliment you for talking about one thing that I see these students, I tell them all the time, is to smile. I think that is what you have very well said. One can make out, and it works again in both ways. It is when you smile, you decide, I tell you to smile, students, and you smile, it works wonders. You try it out, like the auto suggestion does. If your body gets the stimulus that, yes, we are happy, if you decide to smile. So one can make out by the smiles, very well said, when you enter a school, or you're seeing a performance, say students performing on the stage. When there is a slight smile on the face, they look confident.
And
The
so we can
performance
release
is
also
better.
certain emotions when we are using story narration or dramatics. All serotonin and dopamine are released
Yes,
because of this.
absolutely. No, that's very well said. And with that, I move to Dr. Ameeta Mohan with the question, how can we better equip teachers to support students' mental health needs?
I think teachers play, we all agree to it, a major, major role. They can either make or mar the life of a child. And to equip the teachers, first of all, see, all teachers are not the same. Need to identify the teachers who are more empathetic and who are really good at it. To hold workshops for their own teachers, to form their own groups. And I always insist upon that the past history of the child should not be told to the new teacher when the child is moving the next year. Let the child start from a fresh page. And we make it a point, the same teacher for subject is not teaching that child in the next class. Because the child otherwise feels that my biased judgment is already being passed on. And once when the teacher becomes aware of a child's needs, emotional needs and the social needs, she starts to work on it. And I think most important for a teacher is to be very, very empathetic. I know there are times when there's a lot of pressure from us, from the management, to meet the deadlines. And we are all multitaskers now. To teach, to be able to manage the social needs of the child, submit your documents, to maintain the lesson plans. I agree with everything, but at the end of it, even if my teacher at the end of the day says, "Ma'am, my teacher's diary is not complete because I was handling these 4 students," 100 खून माफ है उस teacher के लिए. Because I think it is very important first to understand, realize the need of the child, and all this paperwork can still be there done. Because when in the staff meetings and the other meetings, when these incidents are quoted that how a child was helped by another teacher, and when the alumni come back and say that, "Ma'am, so-and-so teacher made my life, I was going through hell at home," she was able to identify. As the story you told about the child who was missing onto the grades, it was only later on the teacher came to know. Here teachers make a connect with the child, and the child feels free to go and talk to the teacher and be able to relate to the teacher that this is the problem that we are facing. And especially, at teenage years, when there is so much of pressure from the parents, do this, don't do that, this is right, that is wrong, they come and discuss it. And when teachers being discussed with the teacher, they maintain that confidentiality because the child feels secure that my secret is not being made open anywhere. And that is how we are able to identify and work on it. And it's so strange that doctors' children, I mean, it has happened with us, so much of pressure for the child to become a doctor. The child was ready to do anything, starting to take any disastrous step for herself. It was only the intervention of the teacher we were able to control and save her life. And that is what is very important for teachers to be very, very empathetic. And that only lectures don't help the teachers. It's day-to-day work, day-to-day understanding, and watching their own peer teachers, how they've been made to do this work, and they're how appreciated they are by the students for the kind, emotional, empathetic work the teachers are doing it.
You have related it well to the Mrs. Thompson's story, very well in sync with what I just said. Moving on to Dr. Joy, again carrying the thought forward, how can we enhance the mental health awareness in the schools? The topic mental health matters, creating inclusive and supportive environments in K-12 student highlights the importance of awareness, you know. So how can you think we enhance the mental health awareness in schools?
Well, here I don't think I have practiced, and I think I have brought some quality changes. I would put inclusivity as priority because, as you might know, after the Industrial Revolution, long back, we have the industrial products called children, students. Every student learning about the same thing, same class, 30 students, or whatever number of students. Now the point is that, are they always living in this world with the same age group students? No. They are living with different age group. Their family members, the siblings would be different. Why can't we have a mixed age, at least one activity? That's what I practice in my client schools and my areas where I focus, strategy, education strategy, where they will help in, okay, this is X or Y, he might be 2 years older, but he is capable of doing that. It's not because he is older, but he is capable of doing that. Someone might be weak, so he might be doing a different work within the same project. So implementing this project-wise education, bringing inclusive age group students is my priority one in that. And the second one I would put is like nature. Because as many of you know, Kerala is a place where you go for a lot of tourism related with scenic beauty.
God's own country.
Advertisement people call like that, but it's not. It's a Kerala tourism department. They put the terminology God's own country to attract more tourists, and they are good in the strategy planning. So my point is, nature can heal anything in our life. Maybe water, maybe greenery, just walking around. Why can't we make our compound with a lot of trees, flowers, make them feel that, there is a good feel effect. We are, most of the schools, they have good number of square feet of buildings. I agree. We need facilities, but we also need nature. Why can't we cater that? And that is what, to make it more practical in this sustainable way. Why always classes need to be, lectures should happen inside the four walls? Why can't we like children sit around the grass and talk about it? So this, if we can apply in schools, no matter from KG to 12, it's possible. But the teachers should be smart enough to handle things. So, and this two things, inclusivity, even I would also say that I cannot say that all the students in the same class would be having same IQ or EQ or SQ or whichever quotient. No, they have different divergent level, and we have to respect that. For schools or for the management or for the class teacher, it would be 15 students or 30 students, or I focus on 15 students in class. So, but for the parents, it's just one or two. So each one is unique for the parents, and that has to be reciprocated in our teachings, that I should cater that child not because it's the management's niece or nephew, but That child needs a special attention. Every child needs a special attention. That is the inclusivity that we could bring in. And I would say, no more mental issues within the school.
Well, that's another very delicate chord you touched as you were wrapping up this round, that favoritism should not happen. It is another reason that mental health issues happen, in the sense if one child, the teacher's child, is always declared the winner. One has to, yes, always see that we look after the mental health in every possible way. Well, on a serious note, you once again related to your experiential learning point when you talked about the holistic education, which is required when children of different age groups you talked about. In a way, the holistic education is what we are looking at. It is the holistic education where you have the sports, where you have the house activities, you have so many other activities which promote the mixed interaction, which is very important. That is another point very well brought out by you. Now, moving on, finally, again to Dr. Kevin Brady, and again, a very important topic, cybercrimes. The impact of AI, when you talk about the AI, the technology coming in, a subject in itself, we can talk about it and debate whether it's good or bad, like I said, whether boon or bane, but cybercrimes are increasing by the day. And I think it is post-COVID that it happened even more, when the Indian traditional games completely lost out the connect. When we were growing up, we used to play marbles. We used to play simple, yes, and the girls always, yes, played Stapu and so many Indian traditional games which were so good for the hand-eye coordination, and you are related, connected to the nature that you talked about, unlike the screen time which has increased and has led to several issues like the cybercrimes. How hazardous is excessive screen time to mental well-being? Dr. Brady, what would you like to say on it?
So I'm looking at students in front of me, and thinking back to just after COVID, there was a transition, I think, in terms of discourse within the schools themselves, where students would have dialogues with each other, moving over to a parallel universe, a strange place. Sometimes it was Discord, which for me, I have to tell you initially, it seemed like a repository of all the worst ideas on the internet just in one place. And also Instagram, which was a different sort of alternate universe. And I think what happens sometimes, and I got myself an account on Discord just to see what happened there, because it was a mystery to me. And I saw a lot of the civility, a lot of the compassion, a lot of the empathy that we would extend to each other within a normal setting, within a concrete setting, just fly out the window. So students became abusive towards each other. They would look for little things to pick away at. And these are things they would never have done within the classroom. Instagram became its own sort of trouble, where images of one influencer or another, or perhaps their friends, and an image they were projecting of themselves, brought down that self-esteem. And students started to feel worthless and terrible about themselves because so-and-so got themselves inside a Maserati, and there was a photograph, and it was talked about by all their peers. The more we surrender to that alternate reality, to that false consciousness that makes us feel, even as adults sometimes, feel like we are inadequate, like certain things are acceptable that we would never accept in a reality that was a non-virtual reality. We find ourselves, I think, in very treacherous circumstances. And cybercrime follows along from that. So when it becomes okay to run down your peers, to make them feel inadequate, to give them abusive language online, the next step could very well be cybercrime. A lot of teachers will say, well, we can't do anything about that because it's not in the school building. But that world invades our schools one way or another. The conflicts that develop online, we can't insulate ourselves from them. So we'd better face them and find ways to deal with those issues and try to neutralize them and create more healthy paradigms.
Yeah, that's really well said. And now, getting away from the issues, how we can, let's try and end it on a very positive note. Each one, let's talk about things that mental health is a problem, has been underlying amongst our discussion that it is a problem. Yes, it is established, it is a problem, but now let's get on to the positive note of it. And students are sitting, they should see hope, they should be able to come out of it. Very well said, established, well established that yes, screen time has led to it. So what are the ways? Might be getting back to the Indian traditional games, playing more of sports, which I always advocate to the students. And here, I always tell them this example of Kapil Dev, who had a beautiful hand-eye coordination, and when he ran out, an Australian batsman from a position where he could see only one stump, the commentator, Australian commentator, could only say that he must be playing marbles at home. So the hand-eye coordination is definitely enhanced when you have the games. The Indian traditional games, again, hopscotch and all are very, very important. So just to, again, for the final round, set the ball rolling, reading is another thing which can help overcome mental health no matter where you are. You might be in a very tough situation, you might be surrounded by people that you can't get along, but reading is one thing that can pull you out of it. And such examples I would like and expect our educators alongside me. Dr. Manisha Sharma, if you like to suggest something that is going to enhance or help them come out of mental illness. One is, of course, they need to share. If there is an issue, there's no stigma attached. They firstly, primarily, they need to share and we need to identify. We need to give them the test like the situation reaction test or the thematic apperception test to make out whether a child is suffering from certain mental illness or not. Whether he's suffering. If mental illness again sounds, say, a little more negative, if he's suffering, we give out a vague picture and ask them to write a story. If a child writes about something that he or she is not supposed to write, you figure out that he or she is undergoing certain trauma outside at home. So similar examples of what can help them. The way of thinking, like I talked about, you look at the thorny bushes and say they have roses. The positivity, I think, plays a massive role. What would you suggest? Any one thing might be like reading I did. Sports is another.
So I'll suggest a few things. The number one, which I believe is the positivity. However, before the examination, during the examination, the positive thought should be there that I'm the best. Because this happens sometimes, you start demeaning yourself. That feeling is very, very important, a strong positivity, and it should trickle down from top to from everywhere, because it's very, very important. And shun negative thoughts, that's very important. And then pursue your hobby, whatever you like in your life, whether reading, dancing, painting, cricket, any sports, any hobby, which it is very, very important, because that provides a solace. I come across a lot of adolescents where I've seen that they're going through something, some trauma, but they are painting or they are playing guitar or something. So that is a very fine point which you should have. And next is the therapy. You should open for it. Yes, you have this, your problem, acknowledge it. There are several ways. There is nothing like that, that there's no solution for it. If there is a problem, there is also a solution. If there is a challenge, there is a remedy for it. So we have the yoga, and I'm sure that it's not a practical like you are doing yoga and chanting, but some relaxation, positive image building exercises are there. Being mindful, like smelling three best things. That is how to concentrate, because I've seen adolescent children, they face that they're not able to concentrate. Everybody says, no, I'm not able to focus, ma'am, more than 15 minutes or more than 10 minutes, I have to check my phone. I said, slowly and gradually, it will not happen overnight. And within few hours, start doing that mindful techniques. Chalk out or write or articulate 5 important things, observation with related to all the senses. You start doing that whenever you have this kind of problem, children. So have faith. Again, I say, if there is a winter, there can be spring behind.
Yes. So, very well said. You covered a lot of points, in fact, and you talked about the hobbies, you talked about the auto-suggestion, which is very important, which, in fact, I share the children with Pratika Raval, who plays for India from my school, and what I told her, she practices that in between, keep saying to yourself, the auto-suggestion works big time, that you are the best, you are the best. There's sledging happening. There are people, there are second chances around. When the boys walk in, I know they say, when the batsman walks in, they say, jaiga, jaiga, out or hai, ghabra raha hai. But auto-suggestion, you say to yourself, no, no, I'm the best. It makes one hell of a difference, believe you me. And focus, of course, you covered so many of the points. And yoga, I thought you would leave it for someone else, but you did cover yoga as well. But then again, music. If music be the food of love, it gave me excess of it. William Shakespeare said, and I think it is something very beautiful. Let's leave something for other panelists also to talk about on a positive note as to what are the other things that we can be talking about. So may I, on that note, pass it on to Dr. Ameeta Mohan.
I think the most important thing is gratitude. I think if you have gratitude, you have shoes because you have legs. There are people who don't. You can see there are people who are blind. I know it is easier said than done, but the moment you realize it, you have a shelter, you have food to eat. You have, I'm sure you feel that your parents have enough money to be able to support you even when you do not get the marks that they desire. But you have somebody to support you. And I think that's one feeling which, when it comes, can change your mindset. From a fixed mindset, you can go to a growing mindset.
Absolutely.
And that's very, very important in life. Everybody feels that things are not right for me. I deserve more. So-and-so is better off than me. But just look at ones who are lower than you too. Then it will strike you. Yes. If I am not that position, but I am at this position, better off than this, then that journey is not too far for me. And I think that's only comes through gratitude for the life that you've been given to you. So just start actually thanking whomsoever you believe in. And second thing which I feel besides gratitude is, I don't know how many of you may not be very fond of gardening, but playing with the mud or planting a tree and looking after it. We have our children, when they plant the trees, they go and see. It was like this, ma'am, it has become this, ma'am. Now it is becoming a tree, ma'am. And that's the most wonderful thing that you can see. As Sir said it, Joy Sir also said it, nature is something which heals. Do that. And before anybody goes to bed, I think this is something which is very important. 2 minutes or even 1 minute of just sitting quietly, making your own mental journal in your mind. What was good, what was bad, how it can be improved for the next day. That's all. And the moment you get up, you are able to breathe. There are many in the hospital who are on the ventilators. So I think that's something which is very important for all of us.
Let's give a round of applause. In fact, Allowed would be in the end for, it would, yes, because it would, but gratitude, very well said, ma'am. The mindset, it makes all the difference. The monkey mind versus the monk mind, as we talk about, we must look at the positives, count your blessings, like we say. Always write out in your notebook, write on top, count your blessings, what you have. If you focus on what you have rather than what you don't have, you are going to be peaceful in your mind, and the mental health issues can be encountered very well that way. Well, let me move on to Dr. Kevin Brady for his suggestion to you, and might be we can open it. Meantime, you can just raise your hands. It's also be a little interactive, since it is a suggestion to you by the educators, by people who are experienced, much experience. Might be if you have a doubt, you can just meantime raise your hand now. I'll also open it to the audience in case they want to just butt in anywhere that they feel very strongly about. Yes, so Dr. Kevin Brady, if you may say something to the youngsters, because I think mostly the youngsters in front of me, so we can give definitely some piece of advice, something to take away, yes, like we say.
So when Sarah and I were your age 80 years ago, you just recognize that, I think things were very different, and the world was very simple in some ways. And when I talk to students your age, sometimes what I hear is, oh, my life is over, or the world is coming to an end. And when I say, why? They will say, well, I don't have the trainers the fellow did on the Instagram, or I didn't get into my first choice university, or my mother said something really embarrassing in front of my friends. What I would say to you is that if that's your criteria for the end of the world, you're going to be continually disappointed for the rest of your life. So managing those setbacks, and we're talking about mental health, but it's really about cultivating a sense of well-being, mental well-being, and managing your expectations and managing your own optimism and your hope. You can always move past a setback, no matter how detrimental that setback may be. The enemies of moving past that setback are shame, dejection, depression, and isolation. One way to combat that is find two people, two adults especially in your life who are trusted adults, whom you can tell anything to. And it may take a while to find those people. They're probably not your parents. Sorry if there are parents watching. They're probably not your parents. None of us really, well, most of us don't have that kind of relationship. But find those two people, those two trusted adults who you can sit down with and say, look, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling like this is something I can't get past. You need that in your lives. Also, choose friends who are out for your best interest. Sit back, look at your friend group, and if you can say, this person is genuinely out for my best interest, that's a good friend. They may not all be in that category. So circling yourself with people who lift you up, who make you feel like you can find that way through any situation and support you all the way through is important.
Very well said, and you also brought out one point we were almost missing out, that is of the parental role. Might be Dr. Joy would also bring that in along with your advice as to what should be the youngsters doing. And meantime, if there are any questions, you may just raise your hand and we'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, and my point exactly was connecting with what Sir said. But when you ask me a final note on this point, I would say two things. It has to be, nowadays education need to be positive or progressive education. That's the best way to make the mental health more, less stressful. And for this positive or progressive education to happen, you wanted to make it experiential. And there is a point where you said about the involvement of the family and parents comes in. What they are studying, are they actually using it in our daily life? That has to be like maybe one question. How many of you know without using the AI, what was the use of trigonometry in your classes? Anyone? Trigonometry, sine theta, cos theta and everything. Any idea without using AI what is used in our daily life? Have you used it in your daily life? This is actually a problem. We don't experience what we study. It could be rather using it in our small constructions in our daily life, what you make the small, the domestic houses for the pets. While you are traveling, there are a lot of things that we use as trigonometry, but my teacher didn't teach me why trigonometry was used. But I don't want the next generation to run in that level. That's why I said experiential and make it connected to your daily life where parents can play a leading role. Thank you very much.
It's been, I think, a very healthy discussion, and there are takeaways for the youngsters sitting in front of us. They would definitely have gained out of it. I would like to thank my panel here, and with that, ask all of you to give a very loud round of applause to everybody.